welcome to Stoked. My name is Chris.
My name is Jeremy.
Hey, Jeremy, welcome to episode 39.
Why, thank you for the welcome, Chris.
Hey, you know, we've got a pretty big episode coming up because there has just been a ton of Stowe stuff going on this week.
Mm-hmm.
Our first item I thought was kind of an interesting one because it was just sort of slipped in there, and if you weren't paying attention this week, you would have missed it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely. If you're already a Rear Admiral 5, your rank will be changed to Rear Admiral lower.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
then...
And how do you feel about that being a Rear Admiral 5?
You
don't care?
Not really.
The first thing I thought was, Jeremy's not going to care because now Mr. Jeremy Pants has more levels to go attain. So that's
I can become a Rear Admiral Upper, an Admiral, a Vice Admiral.
Well, and what about after level 65? This is what blows my mind.
Yeah, okay, this is a direct quote from the thread, is after level 65, it will be assumed that you will be in control of a fleet.
What? We don't know what that means. I don't think they know what that means.
No.
By they, I mean cryptic.
Yeah.
I don't think they have any idea what that means yet. But
let me just lay a little conjecture on you.
I was going to say, I'm going to conjecture. You go. You conjecture first, sir.
What if when you get to level 65, you finally get the ability to promote your bridge officers to captains, and they can fly your other ships, your previous ships that you've already earned and outfitted and customized? So when you're flying around in your tier 7
is
epic,
so much better than my idea.
Yeah?
By a bajillion times.
Are you going to even say yours now?
Well, because my idea is what I think is actually going to happen,
Oh.
and it's just going to be a title. That's my idea. Fleet Admiral is just a title, but I would way rather your idea. That's for sure. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
All right, that's all.
But that opens a whole new door for a whole new type of space combat, because then you could do special task force type missions that were meant to be soloed by you and your NPC fleet.
It kind of makes sense because you take those same buffs on ground combat. It's maybe that same mechanic, only now they're in ships.
Exactly.
A little avatar swap.
Exactly.
A little ability swap. Go. All right. Now.
Plus, it gives you a reason to use your old ships.
Yeah, I don't need a reason. I want to. If I could put more weapons in there, I would be flying around in my older ships.
Yeah.
That would definitely be a C-store item I would purchase. But we'll get to the C-store. Before we get to that, let's talk about the solar system.
Yeah, this is actually kind of a disappointment, the news that we got, is basically it sounds like the maps are done and we're just not going to see them for one reason or another.
But for a good reason, I think.
Well, Cryptic's new stance on things is basically if there's nothing to do there, you're not going to see it.
So it's not empty space.
It's not a bad goal, but it means that we're going to have to wait even longer to see the other planets in our solar system, except Mars. And interestingly enough, Klingons will get the first look at Mars. We learned that as one of their Klingon-only missions in Season 2.0 release, they're going to have a mission to attack Utopia Planitia.
Do you recall when Season 2.0 is coming out? It's coming
late
out
July.
Yeah. So if you're a Klingon player, that'll be something. I would love to go attack Utopia Planitia. That would be so much fun.
Yeah, huh?
Now let's get into this pre-order bonus controversy.
Personally, not so big of a deal to us.
Yeah.
I mean,
both of us have kind of the stance that in the gaming industry, nothing stays exclusive forever.
Exactly. Exclusive really doesn't mean forever.
And I'll be honest, I was a little burnt when I was looking at the C-store and I saw
your Amazon.
My Amazon Bridge Borg buff, and I was like, oh yeah, I did. I bought that specifically for that. But
it's actually, in a way, almost penalizing the early adopters because they ended up having to spend more money than a current player would have to get the same benefits. However, there are some pre-order bonuses that are still not currently available. We might see them in the future, but things like the automated defense turret, the red matter capacitor, those are still exclusives.
That's true. I didn't see those in the C-store.
Yeah. Right. We'll probably see them. Like we just said earlier, exclusives in the gaming industry are never exclusive forever.
Yeah. But, I follow where everybody's coming from on this. We kind of have a different philosophy about the C-store. It's more like maybe a possible theory. I'll let you flesh it out.
It's widely conjectured. We don't have any information that they're going this route, but both of us kind of feel like the C-store is a hint that Star Trek Online, and maybe to a lesser degree Champions Online, may in the future follow the path of games like Dungeons & Dragons Online and Lord of the Rings Online and go to a free-to-play model that is supported by an in-store game.
I mean, it definitely seems like they're building out an inventory in that C-store so that maybe it's just simply just an extra upsell, but it seems to me that they're trying to build a pretty substantial inventory over time so that if they do need to make that switch, maybe in a year from now or something like that down the road, that they're ready for that. And then additionally, they have the option of granting certain premium access maybe to lifetime subscribers and things like that.
Well, I mean, if they've got a big enough C-store, all they need to do is give you free C-store bonus points on a monthly basis.
It's true, yeah.
And then you can
just
pick what bonuses you get.
Yeah. And they would have to add things of serious value. We're obviously not talking about what they have in there now. We're not even saying if they should do this. Yeah. Well, what if you could buy some sort of historic, iconic Star Trek moment on Vulcan for 150 cryptic points or whatever?
Yeah. What if you can go and experience some sort of mind meld, a trip into the past, like they did on that one episode where he went and met the original Vulcan. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about.
Or you remember the episode where Janeway was in a mind meld with Tuvok, and they went back to the Excelsior and saw Sulu.
Exactly.
That kind of a deal.
So that kind of thing, especially for Vulcan in specific, but then there's also the possibility on Andoria for some sort of arena content.
Absolutely.
Because they're supposed to be into that sort of stuff.
There's so many different ways where they could upsell Star Trek fans that I got to imagine the temptation might be there. They could probably come up with some sort of... Anyways.
But I think the bottom line of what we're talking about is if they do decide to go that route, we're very on board with them having to put content in the C-Store.
Well, they have to. I mean, there's just no way...
People are not going to support your game for fluff alone.
No, it has to be real. Now, maybe they'll never do that ever. But... And maybe the C-Store will always just contain items that are just extra nice to have. That's totally possible. We don't have any inside information on this. It seems like to us that this is the direction things might be.
We're just Nostradamusizing right here.
All right, let's cover the mini E3 that we got. Now,
absolutely.
This is a stretch. I'm going to say call it a mini E3. Because Cryptic wasn't there, we won't cover a lot of it in this show. So if you want to catch that, you'll want to watch Legend of the Stoned Owl. That'll be out the Thursday, the week this came out. That's Lotso over at JupiterBroadcasting.com. That'll have tons of E3 coverage. But we did get our own little mini E3. The only reason I think people are kind of tongue-in-cheek calling that is because it featured a couple of things that maybe would be featured at an E3, like some new screenshots of content we haven't seen before and stuff like that.
And a lot of them feature ship interiors.
The ship interiors are the ones that I'm digging the most, and I think they look fantastic. I think they look Star Trek, for one, which I think is awesome. And I think that they look reasonably better size than I actually expected.
A little tighter quarters?
A little tighter than I thought, yeah. And I've only looked at, there's just a couple in here. Also, so okay, let's just say this. I'm pleased with the interiors.
Yes.
Gonna wait till I see them in person.
Yeah, well, see, my big thing about interiors is that they have to be functional, and so I don't really care so much how they look.
Right.
Sorry.
Functionality.
I want them to not look like butt.
And if you recall that poll, that poll said functionality is the most important.
Right.
Anyways, good screenshots. It's always fun to see the stuff that's in development, and I'm sure most of the stuff if they're at this point showing it now, it probably won't be too long until it hits treble.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Looking forward to that.
All right, Jerms, let's get into the mail. All right, ladies and gentlemen, last episode we asked you, the viewer, your thoughts on improving ground combat, and like the last few times we've asked you, you freaking delivered.
Now, usually we have to do 2 weeks between when we ask a question and do a show.
Oh, that's true. Now, this was a topic people had long, opinionated, passionate emails about, which is awesome, and a lot of you included some diagrams and visuals.
It's pictures.
So that's awesome for us, too.
This is like Christmas, because we didn't have to think up all this content ourselves.
And some great ideas. So why don't we start at the top here?
Okay, the first one comes in to us from a guy named Dennis Klaus, who gave us not only a suggestion, but a link that we will include in our show notes on how to enable first-person shooter mode in the existing client. And then the recommendation, obviously, is that this needs to be included as a base option so that people can have
it's in there.
that more. Yeah, well, it's basically camera control is what it boils down to, and then some extra mouse binds so that you can use more of a WASD and key thing.
Okay.
Less hotkeys. Yeah.
I'd be interested to try it out.
I would as well.
I was impressed. There are some seriously good quality threads in the STO form itself. Just for this kind of ground combat, there is some amazing organizational threads in there where people are attacking this like a scientific problem, like true Star Trek fans would.
The last recommendation that I'm going to read for you guys is a very in-depth thread that we got from a listener. And when we get through the actual emails, we will tell you about this thread as well. You guys are going to want to see it.
Mind-numbingly
You remember when we did that minigame thread and everybody was just like, whoa.
That's this thread, only for ground combat. Yep.
Yeah.
You guys are going to love it.
So another recommendation from Dennis was that we also need to rework targeting so that it can be sort of more like a mouse aim. So you basically end up aiming and targeting who you're pointed at.
He has a great visual for this, and it's more of based on the general area that your mouse reticle is in, or whatever you want to call it, your targeting reticle. You like this idea. To me, it seems really clumsy and inaccurate.
Well,
like I'm worried that I would accidentally be shooting the wrong thing, maybe accidentally draw, I'd aggro something.
Okay, but look at it from another point of view. How many times during combat do you end up going tab, that's not the right target, tab, and even end up tabbing to something that might be behind you for some reason?
Yeah, I know, and that's why I bound all of my standard firing weapons to my mouse, because I almost always click.
Right.
Because of tab.
Right. Yeah,
So,
I mean, there is that. This, I think, is an elegant solution, or it's an idea that could lead to an elegant solution.
I like the beginning. I like where it's going, because it does seem like a much more intimate action pack.
Yeah.
As soon as you stop clicking, it goes from strategic to sort of involved, more kind of adrenaline pumping.
So okay, the next suggestion comes to us from Mac, who has always had great suggestions. He's been in every one of our feedbacks so far. So
good job, buddy.
Way to go, Mac. His idea is basically to rework kit powers so that they have a secondary special effect.
Rework kit powers was a really common theme.
Yes.
In some form or another.
Yeah, I was going to mention those at the end as basically a whole bunch of ideas that we had that came in from several different sources.
That all kind of rotated around this idea.
Yeah, his was only listed separately because he specifically had this idea to combine these secondary powers into additional sort of situational effects, which is also one that thread deals with later on.
It's
basically one of his examples is like if you use a gas attack of some sort, which science officers have a kit that has a gas attack that's supposed to have a chance to stun anybody in the area of effect.
Right.
Well, if somebody throws a plasma grenade into that gas,
ignite it.
It ignites.
I love it.
And it gets rid of the gas effect, so that's no longer there. But the plasma grenade ends up doing a special extra amount of damage.
Strategic, plus it's a reward for kind of knowing the little tricks of the game, which I love figuring out those little tricks. Those little things.
If you think about it, it's more of an expansion on the expose and exploit system.
Yeah. That's a great idea, Mac. Good one.
Next one's come to us from a guy named Richter Scale, who spelt Richter Scale all wrong.
RIKITUR.
See what the party Richter. Okay, so his ideas were to offer enemies the chance to surrender.
I love this one.
This goes back to an idea that you had before. When we talked about it before, you said there's just too many enemies.
I feel like I'm just slaughtering people sometimes.
So what if they had some sort of a morale attribute that was hidden?
So I love where Richter Scale goes with this. He suggests that at a certain point, and probably not immediately, you're... the NPCs you're fighting would have the option to surrender, or you could prompt them to surrender.
Right.
And then he builds on top of this idea that they would beam up to your ship and sit in your brig, and then you would turn them in like at a star base. And occasionally, why not have one of the NPCs that you collected be like somebody who was a wanted criminal?
Right.
So you got like a bonus for capturing that bad guy.
Or if you had the option once ship interiors come in that you could go and check on the prisoners in the brig and possibly question them, opening additional missions.
And that totally
maybe
plays
it would
in
just
well.
Be like the Genesis content type stuff.
Yeah.
But
that'd be fine. I mean, it's just fun little stuff. And Richter Scale points out that you could totally tie this in with, at least I think this was his idea, where you could tie in with the Federation Diplomatic Corps.
Yeah. I would want to see some sort of a Klingon equivalent on the other side for taking prisoners. Give them a reason to take prisoners.
Well, yeah.
Or some sort of public execution bonus.
Or just an accolade for just no mercy or something. I don't know.
I don't know.
But I do like it a lot, and it is a great way to sort of play in with the whole diplomacy thing.
Yeah. We'll see how that pans out, though, when it gets closer to launch.
Because the problem
diplomacy
is,
thing.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like a hold your fire thing.
Or why not?
So you force all of your buffs to hold their fire for like 10 seconds, and if they want to surrender, that's their chance. But it could fail. And so you're just forced to not shoot back for 10 seconds?
That would be cool. Yeah, and you just keep getting hit. Yeah. But that would be great. That would be really great. All right.
Okay, so the last suggestion before we get into the epic thread comes to us from Plunkett. Really simple, and I totally agree with the suggestion. Bleeds, poisons, and debuffs need to have a more significant impact on ground combat. His idea is very simple, but it also adds to the idea that you could
makes kits matter.
There's a whole medic kit that centers around curing debuffs.
Right.
I doubt anybody ever uses that.
It gives a whole it does. It opens up the role for the person to be doing the debuffs, and it opens up the role for a healer.
Yep.
Which right now we've talked about before. The healer's a little murky right now. You don't have to have a dedicated healer all the time.
Plus, let me take this even a step further. You can implement consumables that could potentially heal these that could be crafted.
Oh, yeah. yeah. Yeah, way bigger reason to craft.
Yeah.
Way more important reason to craft if you needed that to get rid of the... Totally makes sense.
Okay, so let's get into this big one. This comes to us from Darren Kitlor, who is a pretty well-known poster. In fact, if you look at his SIG on this thread, he's got like 6 different... This is how you fix the game threads.
Awesome, though. That's awesome.
Great suggestions, and I'm just going to go through a few of them here, but you guys need to check out this thread and read the comments. He's also very into accepting the community's feedback and combining it all into this thread and keeping it updated with your thoughts on it. So, you know,
go to the
keep it in
show
mind.
notes and check out this link. A couple of things that he suggested. He would like to see a camera control improvements.
Yeah.
Right.
And I totally agree. Now, these aren't necessarily an improvement to the combat system, but there are so many times where you will end up, either your camera will move on its own and you can't really tell why at first, or you have the wrong thing targeted.
To be honest with
like,
you,
let's say if...
I really don't have that happen very often.
I do.
So
if an enemy's rushing at you, for example, and you hit tab to get to the next target, it'll sometimes focus on that enemy, and as he runs past you, your whole camera flips around. All of a sudden, you're staring at this one guy,
okay, I know what you're
and your
saying.
entire away team
I
back
have
there
had that
while
happen.
the combat's behind you.
Is that when you're up against a wall? Is that when that happens?
Up against a wall is terrible, but that's not the only time that it happens.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so sure.
All of the camera controls need a revamp, and I really support the idea earlier of offering a first-person shooter option.
That's
because
a pretty broad statement, dude.
Well,
Are you talking about on
do.
the ground or in space too?
In ground.
Yeah. I really have no problem with it in space.
A first-person shooter option. No, it's easier in space, I think, because you're so much further away and there's no walls and barrels and, you know, everything that gets in your way.
There's a lot of rocks sometimes, though.
Sometimes.
Yeah. All right. And he also said include options for non-healers to assist teammates with certain weapon debuffs and buffs.
Well,
and
this
things
goes
like
back to his proposal that includes an expansion of the expose exploit system, which is kind of what was talked about earlier from Mac. He's got charts and graphs to represent this. And
beautiful
we love
charts
that.
and graphs. Yeah.
We love visuals.
Yeah.
And this basically goes down to giving every weapon, instead of just 2 effects, 3 or even 4 that are situational. I mean, right now the only expose exploit we have is expose and exploit. But if you had a whole array of the way that these things interact with each other that he has proposed, it opens up dozens.
That's where the
if not
fun
more.
is. It's like I was saying earlier. It's where you find those little efficiency tricks and you learn how, like, the best order of execution is, and then you've got like your style, and that's when you go in. Oh yeah, here I come, and you've got all this worked out, and it's a lot of fun because you feel like you're mastering something other than just mastering.
You know how much fun it is
mechanic.
to melt somebody? Everybody knows how much fun it is to vaporize the enemy.
I love
or maybe
vaporizing.
2 or 3 at a time.
Oh.
It's so much fun. And they go, ah! Well, what if you could then run around with a cryo weapon on your primary exposer that then is shattering everybody?
Totally. I love it a lot.
Now, again, like I mentioned earlier, this also, the fourth function of some of these weapons is a way for non-healers to benefit their allies. Like I said, the example of thawing out an enemy or an ally that might be frozen. But there's also options like if your ally is surrounded by nanoprobes, that you can use some sort of disrupting, like a Tetrion or something like that. Like if you shoot your buddy, I mean, maybe it'll do a little damage, but it'll kill the Borg probes. So then they're free to go about their business.
Boy, that right now you can't shoot any, you can't target.
Nope.
So that would be a big change.
It would be.
But cool.
But again,
it could be an ability. But I know it's not a gun.
It just adds another extra level of fun, of tactical options, and it makes it so much more engaging to have more options at your fingertips.
Exactly. All right. Now, there was a few common ones that all sort of had the same general theme to them. I have to note a rather funny one was the cover system, and somebody was nice enough to send us along an example of a potentially working cover system from Star Wars: The Old Republic. Yeah.
Kind of hurt a little bit.
Yeah, that one stung a little bit. So we mentioned cover system. You were big on cover system.
I am.
And then somebody sent us a screenshot of Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Hey, look who's got cover. You know what? But they're not the only ones. There's a complete third-person cover shooter MMO called The Agency coming out. So it's not something that's unheard of in an MMO. It would be a complete massive overhaul to STO to try to put this kind of a thing in, but...
No.
Actually, you know what? Darren Kitlor's thread actually mentioned some possible ways to implement a pseudo cover system. So maybe that's sort of a compromise that can be worked in. This is another huge one. Almost as big as a cover system is the idea of modular or customizable kits.
Oh, yeah, that was popular, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that was, everybody had in there, and I totally agree. The kits right now are kind of a snore to me.
Yeah. And there's always one or two powers that you just never use. Now, maybe that was made on purpose, but there's also one or two kits that I will never use. We just mentioned earlier about the one that cures debuffs. Now,
debuffs I don't care about them, so
don't use them. Now, the best suggestion that we had on this topic was somebody said that you could make them craftable, so implement with the crafting system, and then make them some sort of a point-based system.
Okay.
So that maybe every kit has, let's say, 20 points.
Okay, and you can spend them on different
high-end
things?
abilities cost 10 each.
Yeah.
So you could, at the end, and low-end abilities cost 2 each or something like that. So you could make a kit that only has 2 powers.
Now, separate ground combat XP pool.
I love this. I've been wanting this for so long. I love this. Okay, the idea is that basically all the XP that you've gained all this time is going to be for your space only. And whenever you do ground combat, you earned ground experience.
Now, why is this a good thing?
This allows you to build whatever captain that you want. You are never going to have to do both space and ground, so why have them in the same XP pool? That means that if you want to be really, really awesome in space, you have to neglect your ground combat.
But everybody's just going to neglect ground combat.
Exactly.
Why is that a good thing?
That's another reason that getting into pickup groups for things like the special task forces or other high-end content is such a crapshoot, is because there are, for every one player that actually invests and pays attention to their ground combat skills and abilities, there's probably 10 that don't.
Right.
At least 10. And it would be so much better if we could actually have the capability of building up our character to do what we want them to do in each situation. You never need to be doing both, so why have the same XP pool apply to both?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
You do. Yeah, that's true. You're doing one or the other.
So I love this idea. I don't know how they would revamp the skill system for now to separate them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's probably that's like a split right down the middle almost.
But also keep in mind that it also gives you the options of enhancing the ground combat to do a wider array of things, because then if you've been gaining just as many points as you have in space, which your space skill tree is busted up into 3 or 4 different subsystems. Ground is only one. So you could potentially bust that up into another subsystem and then get more fine details of working well with kits that have multiple abilities.
Yeah.
If any of that comes out.
Yeah, I would like to be able to spend points on increasing the kits.
You don't even have the option right now
in
in ground combat to specialize in a specific weapon type like you do in space.
Right.
Which is, I think, kind of a no-brainer. But because the skill system is as it is, you can't squeeze it in. So I think that it needs to be separated. Yeah.
Interesting. And we got a few people suggesting that.
Yep.
So people agree with you, dude.
That's because they're smart.
All right, so next episode we'll have a brand new question for you.
Yes, we
will.
will.
Don't know what it is yet.
No, but stay tuned because it'll be a gigantic surprise.
We got a couple ideas, and we're going to have afterwards, we're going to have a thumb war, and whoever wins gets to pick the question.
I'm going to win.
Oh.
Have you seen these?
I don't know.
They're champions.
But look, I got some sticks here. I got some. These guys are rough ninjas.
Nope.
All right, everyone. Well, if you'd like to leave us feedback, head over to JupiterColony.com. There's a form in there where you can leave sort of any suggestion you'd want for Stoked.
You can.
Hopefully
There's even a math
one.
sub forum if you'd like to see a specific thing on a future math segment.
Yeah.
You can also email those suggestions over to us at STOked@JupiterBroadcasting.com.
You got it, buddy. And then we've had more and more people asking lately about when we do the show live, if we do the show live. We do on occasion. And when we do a live production of Stoked, we'll announce it over on our Facebook page. That is facebook.com/JupiterBroadcasting.
That's right.
Okay, everyone. We come out every Tuesday over at JupiterBroadcasting.com. And until then, have a great Stoke week.